Hello, lovely people of the internet. Brian here from NintendoEverything.com, and I'm joined by someone completely new today.
Hello, everyone.
So, this is John, and some of you may know who he is because he actually did news for us for, I want to say, almost a year, right?
Yeah, just a little bit under a year, I think. Somewhere around like 10, 11 months.
Yep, and you are still with us, actually. John does some Game of the Month articles and things like that, so he's still very much a part of the site.
Yeah, so I contribute here and there. Still try to keep around.
Yep.
Wherever I can.
Yeah. Alright, so there's been a lot of Nintendo news over the past week. It's Thursday night right now here in North America, so who knows what can happen tomorrow because, it's Friday and maybe some companies have some last-minute announcements to make before E3, but over the past few days we've definitely got a lot of Nintendo news, and the first thing I want to touch on is the surprising reveal, and it really wasn't supposed to be a reveal this week, but we now know that Hyrule Warriors is coming to the 3DS.
Yeah, this seems like a good fit for the platform, and I think they've really made some really smart decisions in terms of just connecting with the Wii U version to kind of line all that stuff up. So there's been some pretty big, I guess, additions that have been absent from the Wii U one, most notably the inclusion of the two Wind Waker characters in Tetra and the Red Lion King.
Right, that's very cool, and they were also showing some Wind Waker music in that trailer, so maybe it's like a sign that somehow there'll be new stages based on the Wind Waker or something like that. Yeah,
I really wonder on the stage front what they're going to be able to do to that, with such a big emphasis on Wind Waker being, around the ocean. But yeah, we'll see sort of what happens there. It's definitely a cool inclusion. I know a lot of fans, including myself, were kind of secretly hoping that they'd do something with, the Wind Waker entry, being one of the big main ones in the Zelda mainline franchise that kind of got omitted from Hyrule Warriors initially.
Yep. And we don't technically know that there will be new levels, but you just have to think there will be because, they're including the Wind Waker characters and there's that music there. So, I feel like they have to use that music somewhere.
Yeah. Look, we can only hope, and I'm sure we'll hear about it soon. Nintendo's definitely going to have a lot of opportunities to kind of let us know should they want to, if that's what's happening.
Yeah, we should be hearing more at E3 next week. It really was not supposed to be announced this week, but someone discovered that Koei Tecmo had the trailer unlisted on YouTube, and I actually think that was Liam Robertson from Unseen64, and he just somehow found it, and he shared it on Twitter, and then just things blew up from there.
Yeah, did you, so there's been a few comparison videos that have been floating around, and I think, graphically, it seems to hold up fairly well. Just looking at the comparison, it definitely has been scaled down for the hardware, but everything kind of checks out. No major concessions have been made.
Yeah, I definitely think so.
And the use of the bottom screen seems to kind of mimic that of the gamepad. Although I'm not sure if this was the case with the Wii U one, but it seems like there was a big focus on being able to move in between your playable characters a lot easier and kind of get all that stuff going, at least in the single player front. Was that a feature with the Wii U one?
I don't think it was. That seemed new to me. In the trailer they show switching between the two characters with by pressing different buttons on the touchscreen.
Yeah, so that's definitely cool. I mean, it was listed as Hyrule Warriors All-Stars, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe they're gonna you'd hope they'd make some tweaks to the formula, and that might make their way back to the Wii U one. But it's a new entry, so you'd hope that sort of stuff gets enhanced in some way, not just sort of put on the go.
Yeah, and we may as well mention that you can transfer the new characters from the 3DS version over to the Wii U version.
I think that's so smart because, throughout the lifespan of Hyrule Warriors, at least up to this point, they just keep raising the level cap. So hopefully there'll be some sort of communication there just beyond, hey, you've got the 3DS one, you can move these characters over so that, people who are frantically trying to max out all the characters or really go in depth with that sort of stuff, they have the level of communication there, so they can do that should they choose to.
Yep. And I think it was just kind of a surprising thing overall to happen because I don't think many people thought we'd be seeing a Wii U game on the 3DS.
Yeah, although I guess it always comes back to that same thing of the install bases that you know, it was like when Hyrule Warriors was first announced, it did kind of catch everyone off guard a bit. And I guess this is a good way now, once it's kind of run its course on the Wii U, this is now a good time to sort of push it out onto a new market and expose it to a whole group of people that might not necessarily have seen it otherwise.
Yeah, and honestly, I may double dip on this. I have it on the Wii U, but I'm one of those weird people who kind of prefers playing games on handhelds just because I don't always have a ton of time to sit in front of my TV screen, so I may double dip on this one.
I'm right there with you, especially with something. I guess it is something as repetitive as Hyrule Warriors. It just kind of lends itself to stuff like commutes or just kind of keeping your hands busy when you've got something on in the background.
Yeah, definitely agree. So we will definitely be hearing more about that next week at E3.
Yeah. One last thing to note on that. On the video when it came up, there was it a golden ocarina that came out that Tetra pulled out of the end of that chest.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was right at the end of the trailer. We don't know what that is right now.
Yeah, so anyway, it's cool that even though it's been leaked, there's still definitely a lot more to find out, which will hopefully come out at E3, but if not, you know, we'll hear it when we hear about it.
Yep. Alright, so we can move on to another topic. Kind of another unexpected thing, because this was another sort of game you thought would resurface at E3, rather than hearing about it this week, and that's Devil's Third. And Nintendo just randomly uploaded a YouTube video confirming that the game is coming out in Japan on August 4th. We got a bunch of new footage. And then the following day, they confirmed that it's coming out in Europe on August 28th. So the only region we don't know about yet is North America. And there have been some rumors about it coming here as well on August 28th, but nothing's confirmed yet.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a growing trend at the moment of just... So with this Devil's Third announcement, this was actually announced, right? This wasn't like Hyrule Warriors where it was kind of found out ahead of time.
Yeah, it was just Nintendo being random and saying, "Oh, hey, here's a new 10-minute video for Devil's Third, and here's a release date for Japan."
Do you think this could be something along the lines of, you know, getting this announcement out ahead of time to either push something further out about Devil's Third at E3, or just kind of making room for something else, or? Like, why now? That's kind of the big question.
Yeah, I've been wondering that myself. I mean, you'd have to think that if Nintendo's talking about these games now, they have better things to show at E3. I don't know.
And it's not like they've been saying some pretty... I mean, they've been like boasting about it quite... I mean, it wasn't as if they just pushed out the one trailer. Like they were saying... I mean, they detailed... I'm not sure if it was just recently, but they've been detailing the online and, you know, just the volume of the game. And... I think even they mentioned that the only way to get it in Japan is through Amazon. Otherwise, you've got to go... Like, they're trying to push it big through the eShop. Granted, Amazon Japan has quite a big presence over there. Like, from my understanding, Amazon is quite huge. And I know with cases like Xenoblade Chronicles X, you know, that's kind of where to go to see, like, the player reviews for that sort of stuff. But still, to have it exclusive to Amazon like that, that's kind of... I guess that's kind of big news.
Yeah, interesting. I almost don't want to say this, but you know, it makes you think that maybe Nintendo doesn't have a ton of faith in the game in a way, because you know they are limiting it to one retailer. Yeah,
but that being said, you know, like I guess as one of the consequences of the big move to the mobile market in Japan, retail is definitely on decline, as it is like on the decline everywhere. But yeah, it is a little bit. It does raise an eyebrow or two, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah, so that's the update on Devil's Third, and we can move on to another notable topic, and that's the Smash Brothers presentation coming up this Sunday.
Yeah, so that's another one that's a bit like getting it out ahead, and it's another one that's sort of coming out ahead of time, which is good, I think, because it's good. Like Smash 4 is funny because... You know, back when I was on news and we were still doing the daily screenshots, it just seemed every single day there was just all this hype. Every new little bit of information we got out of it, it was just like the hype was huge. And then it came out and the hype sort of rode for a bit. And then as it sort of started to die down, you know, Nintendo were really good about pushing out new updates with the not only with the balances, but the Mewtwo stuff, the Lucas stuff. So it's had a long tail, and this just seems like pushing that further.
Yeah, so far we know that Nintendo is going to be touching on things like Lucas and that Miiverse stage. So far, that's all they're saying. And I'm guessing that this is only going to be 20 minutes long because I think Lucas comes out 20 minutes after the presentation ends, so I don't know what they're going to talk about in 20 minutes, but you would have to think that they're going to touch on some other things as well, even if it's just like one new character or something along those lines.
Well, I've been reading around online, and the big thing people have been saying, you remember from last year they had the 50 Smash facts for the Wii U version or something that came out either during the some point during E3 they had that video with the 50 new facts. And the only one that they haven't, I guess, touched on since, I mean, obviously the Amiibo stage still needs to come, but there's the inclusion of the tournament mode that was mentioned towards the end of that presentation. And they did say that it was going to take a bit of time to come up, but I have a feeling that that's going to be something that pops up.
That would be interesting. I feel like we would have heard about it in some form by now if they were going to release it this weekend, but you never know. It's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, there's definitely that. There's also, Evo's coming up in July, and I mean, I know Nintendo and the competitive Smash community have sort of an interesting relationship. They've been very vocal about pushing stuff in the past. With I think Evo last year when they didn't want stuff streamed, and then there were all sorts of issues with that. But then earlier this year at Apex, they actually helped supply not just Wii U's and control the adapters when they were still in short supply, but I think they went out of the way to supply stuff like N64s and GameCubes. So who knows? They might even announce some sort of pot bonus or support for that as well. But who knows? It could be any number of things, which is just really exciting.
Yeah, and again, it's another thing where it'll be interesting to see if Nintendo just kind of says everything they have to say about Smash Brothers now, or if they wait until Tuesday to maybe talk about it a bit again there as well.
Right.
So yeah, that's Smash Brothers. There's definitely a lot of news coming out before E3, and that continues again because we know that a new Sonic Boom game is coming to the 3DS.
Yeah, it is.
I don't even know what to say here because, I mean, obviously there was the Wii U game, which was not very good, and Sega kind of admitted in interviews this week that it wasn't good, and out of the two that came out, there was the Wii U version and last year's 3DS version, and they felt that between the two, the 3DS version was a bit stronger, and they want to continue with that. So, supposedly the developers are listening to the feedback from last year's 3DS game, and they're trying to make it a little bit more about speed and maybe a little bit less adventure-y. So,
right. That definitely seems to be a recurring thing with modern Sonic games, is kind of missing the point, I guess, to varying degrees, that, speed is what the focus is with Sonic. And it's good to see that, it's because it's the same developer, it's good to see that they're taking on some of the big complaints being, a lot to do with the pacing and the dialogue and, the stuff you were talking about with the adventure-y stuff. So I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants Sonic to be a bad game. It just always turns out, well, not always, but it can sometimes turn out that they're not so good. So you just have to hope that, again, the developers are listening to what people said about last year's game and just improve upon it. And so far, fingers crossed, it does sound like they're doing that, so...
Yeah, so... I don't know, do you think we'll see more of that at E3? Probably.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be there, even if it's just mentioned casually in like a third-party reel during Nintendo's presentation, and I'm sure it's going to be playable.
Yeah, well that's... Oh yeah, because I think they actually did mention... Because I think it's slated for holiday... They were saying something about holiday this year with a possibility... Yeah, and the demo is coming, so... Yeah, I think they're definitely keen to sort of take on the fan feedback, and that's definitely a good way to go about it.
And actually, now that I think about it, it may not be playable at E3 because I don't think Sega's going, if I'm remembering correctly. So if it is there, it'll just be like at Nintendo's booth or something. Right.
Well, yeah. I mean, if they're improving upon the last game and they're trying to, base it all off the same tech, I'm sure we'll see it at some point, and they'll be keen to sort of hear from fans to sort of get it right this time.
Yep. So we do have more announcements. It's kind of crazy how many things have come in this week, but we also heard about Mega Man Legacy Collection for the 3DS.
I'm very surprised by the reaction to this game. I mean, they're definitely doing a lot of things right, but I don't know, Capcom and Mega Man, it's just, they have such a weird relationship, and to go so long with saying so little and then to come out with this, it's interesting.
So, what do you think about it overall? So, okay, getting news in Australia is weird because we
we get up in the morning and it's kind of like we get this huge wave of just all the stuff that's sort of gone on overseas. And I sort of did a double take when I saw that in the morning. But I think they're doing a lot of things right with it. I mean, the knee-jerk reaction is, well, hang on, you've been charging us, X dollars for each title in isolation on their own for the eShop for how many years now? But, I think the additions that they're adding and the price point at, 15 US and, whatever else it is in the other reason, I think is a really, really smart price point when you put that in conjunction with the big changes they've made in the challenge and museum modes.
Yeah, the reaction to me has seemed a bit towards the negative side, but I don't know if this is necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't seem like it's going to be doing any damage. It's from a third-party developer, I think Digital Eclipse or something, so Capcom isn't developing this internally.
Yeah, and Capcom and third parties have kind of been in troubled water a bit recently with most notably Ultra Street Fighter 4 on PlayStation 4, where they came out a few months back and said, this is going to be the definitive version. We're going to do it with all the pro circuits, and this is going to be we're going to get it right, and this is going to be the version. We're going to fix all the problems. And then it came out, and not only did it have issues that were pre-existing in the other versions, but they actually went back and caused some just major problems to the point where they had to pull support of the game on the pro circuit. So hopefully Digital Eclipse, I'm pretty sure they're a more reputable third party than what was the case with Ultra Street Fighter 4. But I think one of the bullet points was it was being developed in an all-new engine. So that could, I have faith in them, but if they get that wrong, fans are gonna lose it. They've got to be really as faithful as possible to the ports, and developing an all-new engine they've got to tread carefully, I think.
Yeah, who knows? But I feel like it's a good thing to at least see Mega Man in some form, Yeah. It's been gone so long. And, there's a TV show coming in 2017 or something like that, so maybe this is, paving the way for Mega Man's return.
Yeah. And Capcom, they've said in the past, right, they use HD re-releases to sort of gauge interest in franchises or something. I think I've read that before somewhere. So hopefully they can get what they want, and then we can get more Mega Man out of it. But I guess we'll just see what happens. It's definitely, I'll probably pick it up if it does what it sets out to do right.
Yeah, same here. It's only $15, so it's not that bad. And you're getting 6 classic games, and there's gonna be artwork and things along those lines. So,
I think $15 on the Australian eShop is 2 NES titles. So that's pretty good value if that's kind of the price points we're dealing with at the moment, and you get the added stuff on top of it.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so let's close things out with talk about 2 Japanese RPGs. First being, and I'm probably going to mess up the name, Return to PopoloCrois, a story of seasons fairy tale, coming from Xseed and Marvelous.
This is... Brian, what's going on here? Why is this... What's happening with this title?
I just like how it looks. It's just a very nice looking RPG.
Because PopoloCrois was a popular anime in Japan, from my understanding. It's been around since the 80s, I think it first aired. And the last time we saw it in the video game space was on the PlayStation Portable back in 2005, which was to coincide with the anime re-release, in the early 2000s.
Yeah, I think that might be right. And I feel like Sony owned the games at one point or something. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like it was only on Sony platforms until now. Yeah,
and just sort of going off the setting of the anime, it's a natural fit. It all kind of makes sense. I'm just kind of curious as to why or how it happened.
I don't know how it happened. It's interesting because it was gone for a few years, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it was owned by Sony. So Marvelous ended up making this iteration, and now it's on 3DS, and Xseed's bringing it over.
Yeah, and so they're spouting things like it's going to be turn-based combat, and you're going to have towns full of NPCs as you'd expect in a Story of Seasons or Harvest Moon, not Harvest Moon, that kind of stuff. So the farming stuff, I think it'll have all the pieces there. We'll just kind of see how it's going to differentiate itself from the other entries. that have sort of been out in recent years.
Yeah, it does have that Harvest Moon elements like crop raising and bug catching, but I think it's geared more towards the RPG side.
Okay, well that'll be interesting.
Yep. So yeah, that's coming later this year, this winter in North America.
Cool, we'll probably hear more about it soon then.
Yep. And another game just announced for North America today. We kind of knew about it before because an Atlas PR rep kind of screwed it up and announced this ahead of time a few weeks back, but now we know for sure that The Legend of Legacy is coming to North America.
Yeah, so I guess so it's been out in Japan for like quite some time and it was fairly well received. I think it got somewhere in the mid-30s from Famitsu. It's got a stellar lineup behind it, guys that have worked on Final Fantasy 13. You've got Masato Kato who worked on Chrono Trigger. So they've definitely got the talent behind them. And from my understanding is they're going to sort of take some feedback and rebalance the Japanese version a little bit for the Western release, which is good because I guess it's been out in Japan. I don't know how long it's been out in Japan for, but either way, they've taken some feedback on board, which is always good.
Yeah, from my understanding, it wasn't a perfect game, but it was generally well received. But there were some things like the battle speed, I know, was kind of criticized by gamers. So kind of interesting that they're going back to the drawing board a bit and touching things up because usually you don't see that too often where a game is released coming from Japan and then they kind of spruce it up a bit. You don't always see that. Yeah,
I think it happened with Bravely Default, if I'm not mistaken, though that was something a little bit more significant. Like that was a year and a half, and I think they added, a whole nother. Well, I think like Bravely Default Flying Fairy or whatever it was. That wasn't the original name when it was first released in Japan, but they definitely took on feedback with that. If I'm remembering that one right, so it's not unheard of. But yeah, like you said, it's not something that always happens.
Yeah, and with Bravely Default, I think they actually did a re-release where it was like Bravely Default for the sequel, and they kind of re-released it in Japan with improvements, and then I think that was the one that we got here in North America and Europe.
Right.
So yeah, with this one, they're just taking the Japanese release, not even re-releasing it there, and giving North America this improved version.
I wonder how Japanese gamers react to that sort of stuff.
I'd be a little bit annoyed, but maybe they'll get the improvements in like an update or something.
Yeah, I mean they've got the capability to push that out now, thanks to the small steps that Nintendo have started to make in the online space.
Yep, and in terms of the game itself, this is another just classic RPG, kind of like a saga game, those games that Square Enix used to make.
Yeah.
So going to be another good addition to the 3DS library.
Yeah, so you've got something like 7 playable characters, and you've got customization in the fact that it's turn-based again, but you can sort of build your own parties around that, and I think they're doing something a little bit different with the way the classes work. So Atlas have a pretty good history when it comes to that sort of stuff with RPGs. So I've got faith that whatever's coming over is going to be hopefully something that stands out. But if they can improve upon the issues that had when it first came out, then that's always good.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was a lot of news. We got a lot of announcements this week. Kind of felt like E3 already started, so...
Yeah. It's exciting, if we're getting this much out before E3, it just kind of makes me more excited to see what they're holding close to their chest for next week.
Yep, I'm very excited and nervous because I'm going to have to cover it all.
Yeah. It's gonna be a long week, but we'll get through it. I'll be with you. I'll be there with you in the middle of the night, at least for the press conference.
Yeah. So yeah, John and I will probably be back sometime next week to talk about all the E3 news again, probably after Nintendo's digital event airs. All right. So we will talk to you guys next week, and thanks for listening. See ya.